Hi everybody, Sarah Grace here. Today I'm going to talk to you about bird beaks. We're going to become ornithologists. Ornithologists are scientists who study birds. Also this week, Erica Geary will be giving an art lesson about John James Audubon, who was an illustrator who also studied birds. So I thought it would be perfect timing for us to go over this lesson together. People have discovered and documented about 18,000 currently living bird species, according to new research by the American Museum of Natural History. Different types of birds eat different types of food, and the secret to figuring out what they eat is by looking at their beaks. Imagine eating soup with a fork or spaghetti with a spoon. That would be really, really hard. All bird species have a beak adapted to eating the particular kinds of foods that they eat. Birds can be classified or organized by the way that their beaks look. Most birds have one of 8 main styles of beaks, and that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. Here we have a finch. This is an example of a cracker beak. Birds that eat mostly nuts and seeds, they have short conical beaks that are widest at the base, so here at the base, and they can crack open shells and get to the meat of the nut or the seed. This is one of the most common beaks among songbirds. So examples of birds with cracker style beaks are sparrows, finches, cardinals, and blue jays. This is an example of a bird with a hooked, or also called a shredder beak. These are typically birds of prey, which are birds that hunt other vertebrates, and birds that scavenge carrion, which means dead things. These beaks are designed for fatally biting prey and tearing apart flesh. They're like a cracker, but point down at the tip. So see how it's wider at the base? But it points down, unlike the finch. The finch just comes straight out to a point. This hooks down. Just because a bird's beak points down, though, doesn't mean it's a bird of prey. The beak has to have something kind of like a hook at the end. See that hook? So some examples include eagles, hawks, falcons, ospreys, owls, vultures, and buzzards. They all have hooked beaks. So now I want to show you an example of what a hooked beak might look like. So this is the beak, and this is the meat. And it comes in to get its prey, and it's very sharp, made specifically for eating meat. This is an example of a spear beak. This is a heron. Herons, terns, kingfishers, egrets, and other fish-eating birds have spear-like beaks designed for stabbing fish and amphibians. Some dive at fish while others stand in the water waiting for prey to swim by. Spear beaks are large, long, and pointed. Look how pointy that looks. Perfect for a fish kebab. I'm going to show you an example of that. We're going to use a marshmallow again as our fish or an amphibian. And here we have our beak. See how it uses it like a spear to pick it up, to stab at it. The next type of beak is a tweezer beak. So we have a robin as an example. Some species of birds rely on insects for their diet. These types of birds usually have thin tweezer-like beaks that easily pick up and hold onto insects. This beak is the same shape as a spear beak, but it's much shorter. So let's compare that. They do look very similar, aside from the length. Yeah, they're both pretty pointy on the end. This is the thinnest and smallest beak of all the ones I'll talk to you about. Some examples of tweezer beaks are warblers, wrens, and orioles. Some of these are bits of rice, and some of these are dried lentils. A tweezer beak would be able to come in and pick out insects very easily. The next type of beak we have is a strainer beak, or a slotted spoon beak. It can be called one or the other. Ducks and other birds that spend a lot of their time in the water and who eat mostly water plants and insects usually have a strainer style beak. They filter food out of mouthfuls of water and sand and other things found in water. These are long, flat bills with ridged edges. See that underneath here? Have you ever used a comb to brush your hair? The inside of their beak is kind of like that. So the comb-like structure filters out the food. I'm going to show you an example of what this type of beak is like. So this is a strainer. Sometimes when you're making pasta and the pasta is just finished boiling and cooking, you pour the pot of pasta with the water through here and the water will all come out and the pasta stays in here. So you can add your sauce. So their beaks come in and they scoop it up. Let me use my finger for some help. And look. The only thing that stays in is the food that they're wanting to eat. These are actually black bean noodles, but I thought that they looked really cool, like worms, to use for this lesson. They look kind of gross though, don't they? The next type of beak is a probe beak. This is a hummingbird. It's also called a straw beak. They're long and slender, and they're designed for getting at nectar inside tiny flower parts. Many birds with these beaks also have long, thin tongues. I'm going to show you a picture of a hummingbird with its tongue sticking out. See the tongue? Look how long it is. Hummingbirds are the most famous bird species with this type of beak. Other examples are sunbirds, spinebills, and several types of honey eaters. This example is pretty easy. This is like their probe beak. They come in. And they use their beaks like a straw to get the nectar out. This is just iced tea. The next type of beak is a chisel beak. Think of a woodpecker. Imagine what their beak must look like in order to peck holes into trees. So they want those tasty insects living under the bark, so their beaks have to be really strong in order to chisel through the bark. And then once they get inside the tree, they stick their tongue into the tree to take out the insect. And here's an example of that. That one's really long. And then the last example that I have is a Swiss Army knife beak. So this is a crow, and this beak is all the beaks wrapped into one. It can crack nuts, spear fish, can even catch insects in mid-flight. This beak can be found mostly on crows and ravens. Lucky them. Here's some interesting facts that I found. The ruby-throated hummingbird is a tiny bird that is iridescent green. The males have a red patch on their throat. They have a long needle-like beak designed to sip nectar from flowers. They hover at flowers, beating their wings 50 to 60 times each second. So in that amount of time, they beat their wings 50 or 60 times. They weigh about the same as a penny, and their eggs are the size of a pea. That's really tiny. Some interesting facts about the robin. Many think they migrate and come back in the spring, but actually they quite often spend winter in the woods and are just less likely to be seen. Bird beaks are really interesting, and maybe you'd like to learn more facts about them. There's a lot of really cool facts about bird beaks. For example, pelicans are famous for their pouched beaks that hold up to 9 gallons of water and fish. 9 gallons. That's 9 full milk jugs. Can you imagine that? Just in one beak? So maybe you would like to research some interesting facts about bird beaks or their diets, or even just birds in general. Maybe you want to learn about their nests. Maybe you want to try the experiments that I did with the marshmallow and the rice and the tweezers. You could even do some bird watching. I've been seeing a lot of birds lately. They've been coming out. I think they're really enjoying this nice weather. So you could do that. I'm really excited to see what you do, so let me know. Bye guys, miss you.